welcome to the NFL Strategy Show. First of the week, breaking down Week 11, talking Fantasy Cruncher lineup study with lessons for our Week 12 contest. We do it every single Monday. Manny, Laura, myself, Dave Loughran, and of course our sponsor, Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, home of that $200,000 NFL baller. Get in there now by using the sign-up code AWESOMO and signing up through us to get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points, dem YSRPs. Used on the site, they're as good as cash to play and win real money. Once you play through it, of course, you can withdraw that money as well. You got the $200,000 baller this weekend coming up for NFL, but also some very solid NBA contests. Their flagship contest, The Baller, $25,000 prize pool, $10 to enter, $5K to first. That's the NBA Baller tipping off tonight at 7:00. We'll drop the link into chat. Here's how you do it. Just go to awesomeo.com, click on the NFL tab. You'll see in the articles, of course, the showdown article for tonight by EMAC, totally free. You'll see the Yahoo link right at the top of that. Click that. Use the sign-up code AWESOMO. Get your YSRPs up to $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points upon signing up and depositing. And, of course, get you started off on the right foot over there at Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. Manny, how we doing, brother?
Good, man. Another solid week in the books. Not for me per se, but good football, man. We had some sweats. Of course, doing the Sirius XM show yesterday, we had a bunch of one-score games that we that we were talking about there at the end. So pretty cool. And then another person takes down a milli. We'll review it now. But a friend of mine, viewer of the stream, and pretty cool, man. Just happy for him.
No question. Yeah, he actually had shouted you out upon winning this one. Big win for him. He had 150 lineups. I think it's funny, too, that there were some people when he won that commented, well, yeah, if you have 150 lineups, of course it's easier to win this. I don't think people will ever understand how difficult it is, even with 150 lineups, to still win anything of even remote significance.
Yeah, no, anyone who says that, I mean, they've been saying that for years, man. It's ignorance. That's all it is, right? It's just ignorance. People are mad, they're jealous, they're salty, they didn't win $1 million, and then they have to complain somehow. I almost feel like saying, listen, here, I'll give you a free fantasy cruncher for a week. Go try, and I'll give you the money to put into somewhere. You tell me how much you lose after you're done, because he ain't winning anything.
No.
So I don't know. That's what I feel like saying, but, it's Twitter.
For a while, I would put, 150 in and just wasn't doing it right. I had,
correct. Yeah.
There's so many ways to screw up. There are so many ways to do it wrong on Cruncher. I mean, my process now compared to what it was before, it's not even remotely close. And it just goes to show you what goes into it. And, of course, with 150 lineups, the optimizers like Cruncher will optimize them, but right. You still, and even if you have good projections, that's still not enough. You have to do so much more to be competitive in today's DFS.
Yep. And it's one of those where it's always evolving, right? Like people are always getting better. The field's always getting sharper. You can't think that whatever you did, I don't know, even just 2 years ago, in Cruncher's still going to work today. People continue getting better. So you have to continue adjusting, just like anything else in this world, man. In any industry, you have to keep adjusting, keep getting better, and keep researching, improving your process, and that includes whether you run 150 or 3 max. It's you always have to continue getting better. So it's a challenge for sure.
Just to give you an idea of where I was at yesterday, my highest owned wide receiver was Calvin Ridley, and that ended up playing well. Of course, Bradbury seeing a whole lot of Julio Jones. Ridley benefited, and then DJ Moore was up there as well. The problem is, and Deebo Samuel. I had 26% Deebo Samuel as well. So I had some really, really good wide receivers in my lineups. But as I mentioned on the deeper dive yesterday, I thought I really liked the Tampa Bay Bucks with Marshawn Lattimore out. I thought it would make a big difference. I had a lot of Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, and that did not go as planned. I had some Tyler Boyd. That was terrible. Of course, I had 20% Michael Thomas, so that's good. But 3 of my top 5 owned receivers were great or good to great. And then 2 of them in Godwin and Evans were just really disappointing. So, it is what it is. Josh Jacobs, of course, I was under the field on Brian Hill. I talked about that being the case. There was no way I was coming in above the field on him. I still had some, of course. Yeah, who were the highest owned guys that you would say hurt you yesterday?
Well, yeah, Brian Hill was a disaster. And I still tried to get lower and lower and lower. It's just, man, I don't know, just kind of making the lineups. It felt like I was just trying too hard sometimes. So for me, it was Brian Hill. I mean, some of my receivers just didn't really get there at all, and I don't know. It's kind of it wasn't really a disaster per se. It's just I didn't get there on some guys that I just had way too much of. Brian Hill being the primary guy, but even Fournette, as an example, didn't do much. If it wasn't for Carlos Hyde's 40-yard touchdown run at the end, he didn't do much. And I don't know. I went to some of like Marquise Hollywood Brown wasn't good enough for me. Christian Kirk, Julio, like all these guys were just pedestrian at best. So it was very frustrating. I missed on a lot yesterday.
Well, of course, we're happy to have everybody with us on today's show. I have something to point out as well, which is pretty cool. Laz gets fit. Anyone that's been watching the show that watched last week, we talked quite a bit about Laz Gets Fit, the one that was playing the defense against two players from the opposing team. Well,
200 IQ, baby.
Yeah. So this guy, he won like $250,000 last week. And so he reached out to me, DM, and I didn't really believe it was him. So I was like, dude, I got to vet you. And put it this way, it's him. Like, it is him. And he said that he would be willing to come and join us on the show at some point, Manny. So I think we're going to get our boy Laz Gets Fit on. And I even asked him, I said, hey, are you willing to talk about your process? He says, yeah, no doubt about it. I know it's unconventional, but I would love to talk about it. So he reached out to me, DM me the other day, said he's been watching us for a while, which is pretty cool. And we might get Laz Gets Fit on the NFL Strategy Show next Monday. That'd be awesome.
I mean, he's going to have to come up with some really good explanations to tell me some of this stuff, right? Because we found some really, really questionable things in his lineups. But, hey, the guy didn't just win last week or whatever. He's been winning for a while now. I'd say for years now, playing maybe this style. I don't know if he's always done this, but he's been winning for a while to the point where, even a DK representative tweeted us saying, or an ex-DK representative tweeted us saying, dude, this guy's a legend. And it's like, what? Really? I mean, I guess. It's so unconventional. You're right. Maybe it makes him unique in these tournaments. Who knows? I don't know. It's really funny to look at. But hey, money's money. However you win it, man. I can care less how I got 200K. Right? If I got it, I got it, dude. And he definitely has it now. So
he does. I'd love to talk to him. I would love to have him on to talk to him and get his opinions on what he does. So.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to it for sure. Let's take a look at some of the top lineups from this week. Of course, NH Payne won the Maker $1 million to first place, baby. Let's see how he did it and who he did it with. His winning lineup was Josh Allen, 33.84 fantasy points. Christian McCaffrey, 33. Devin Singletary. And by the way, McCaffrey didn't even score, and he still had 33. Insane.
Unreal. He's amazing.
Insane. Devin Singletary, only 9. Ridley, 31. Devontae Parker, 24. John Brown, 37.7. Ryan Griffin, 24.9. Deebo Samuel, 24. Vikings, 4. I'm not going to lie. Like, I would never in a million years have come up with this lineup. Zero chance I'd have even come close to this lineup. Pairing Singletary with Allen, Devontae Parker against Tre'Davious White. Tre'Davious White fell down on one route, and Parker went for like 60 yards. Like, I'm not ripping him. I'm just like Ryan Griffin. I don't see any way I was going to get to Griffin. Of course, Chris Herndon was out, and we know he's out. He's on the IR. But yeah, there are a few plays here that hey, maybe it's me, but I never would have gotten to a couple of these guys. Not in this lineup, especially not with this combination.
Yeah, no, Josh Allen to Singletary, something I probably, Yeah, you're right. I don't think I ever get there. That's really tough, especially with the way I make lineups. I'm actually sure I would never get there. And then Ryan Griffin, not sure if I had him in my pool at all, which is different. Yeah, pretty interesting. Listen, it won a million, right? He did something right. Josh Allen had a great game. You talked about McCaffrey. We talked about it yesterday. Almost a 100 game, and he didn't even score. They didn't even score a touchdown, which is different. And he had 120 yards receiving and 70 yards rushing. Just a truly special player. You talked about Ridley at length the last few days, so I know you were high on him. But Devontae Parker, someone that I liked as a contrarian play, but definitely not someone I would have. And if it makes sense, if you were on Josh Allen to John Brown and you want to run it back with someone, I think Devontae Parker was the best guy to run it back with. And then, I would have never been on Ryan Griffin. So really, really fine lineup. The only thing I questioned was probably that Singletary play. And to be honest, that's the only position player that scored single digits. So, I mean, I guess it was a fair question on our part, but still a really, really good lineup on a really tough slate, in my opinion.
I don't think I would have gotten there. I tell you that much. I don't think it would have happened. I was nowhere near Devontae Parker. You were expecting shadow coverage from Tre'Davious White, but this is what's funny because, like I said, a corner can fall down, and it can literally change the entire direction of the slate.
Right.
Now, to be fair, like you look at Devontae Parker, and he needed more than just one reception. Right, he needed more than just one. He was 7 for 10 for 135 yards.
Right,
but his 50-yarder was on a slipped cornerback. Pairing Singletary is a spot that, again, I don't think I would have gotten to, and he only had one target, so I'd feel confident in that being the case. John Brown. The thing about John Brown is, like, obviously you can make sense of him being a good play, but the issue for me was he was just expensive. Like, John Brown was certainly priced way up, and he had a monster game. So there you have it. And then Ryan Griffin, the argument you can make in favor of Griffin is, all right, well, the tight end position is bad, right? The tight end position is just bad, but
it was horrible.
Flat out ceiling game from Griffin. All 5 of his targets he hauled in for 109 and a touchdown. You just aren't going to get better than that.
Yeah, I mean, you had to, obviously, whenever you win a milli, you have to first, we always talk about it as put yourself in the position to get lucky first, right? And then if the ball happens to bounce your way, there's your milli, right? You don't get many chances at this, but just giving yourself a chance every week is the best thing you can do. I remember on my streak last year, it was somehow it felt like I had a chance every single week. That's really what it felt like going into every week. And that's all you can do. Just give yourself a chance. Give yourself a couple top 1% lineups, and hopefully, it swings your way one week. And listen, he put himself in really good spots this week. There were a couple lineups up there that had a shot, this one specifically, and it just happened to go his way, even though Singletary might not have been the best option. You needed some luck with Ryan Griffin being perfect on his 5 targets. You needed some stuff to go well with Devontae Parker in his game script. It did. Like, just give yourself the chance, and you never know what can happen. That's exactly what he did.
He had 150 lineups. 4 of them had Josh Allen. Okay?
There you go.
4 of them
All
had
you need
Josh
is one, man. All you need is one.
One lineup had Devin Singletary. So this lineup had Devin Singletary. What about wide receiver? Where's John Brown at? Did he have a lot of John Brown? He had,
I assume in the Josh Allen lineups.
Yeah, 14 John Brown. So he had more John Brown than Allen lineups. Who else was in this winning lineup, Manny? We had
Ridley, right?
Ridley, Parker, 15% Ridley. Devontae Parker, 7 lineups total, 4%. Ryan Griffin, 2 Ryan Griffin lineups. I mean, dude, this has to go perfectly right. Wow. Like, has to be perfect.
He really just had 2 lineups that were even, close, right? It really was just 2 lineups. One that scored 192, one that scored 221 to win it. That's really all you can do, right? To cash that many up there is so difficult, right? I think in NFL with the variance that happens every single week, you have to kind of spread yourself, not too thin, but give yourself, at least some room to where, all right, some of your top guys didn't do well. Okay, so you're still in it, and that's what he did. Listen, all you need is one. All you need is one, and yeah, man, you put them together, you put the right pieces together. That's all you can do. Granted, does he get to a top 1% or 0.5% score the rest of the year? Probably not. That's how this tournament works, right? And you really just get one shot at it per year, I'd say. He made the best of it. That's a fine lineup, man. That's a fine lineup.
43 wide receivers in his player pool, 21 running backs. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 14 tight ends.
Yeah,
and looks like he had about 16 or so quarterbacks.
Not bad. Not bad at all.
17 quarterbacks. Wow. Yeah, those just I would not have gotten
even with that many players. I don't think I would have landed on Ryan Griffin nor a Josh Allen Singletary. Not that he won because of Singletary, but
right. Yeah, no, I think I've never been that lucky to have my 4 of my 150 Josh Allen lineups paired with Devontae Adams, who I had 7% of, but you know what? Good for him. Let's take a look at the guy that came in second place. See what we got here. I would imagine that this lineup looks a lot different. Tad 10008. He came in second place with 219.5. Lamar Jackson, Carlos Hyde, Mark Ingram, Deebo Samuel, Michael Thomas, Randall Cobb, Kyle Rudolph, and John Brown with the Saints defense. What do you say about this one?
Yeah, it's first of all, doing this with 3 lineups when 2 are pretty much dead because you played them with Kyle Allen is another testament to, again, all it takes is one. He had just one really good lineups. The other ones were, dude, one was 100 points less than his best lineup. The other one was almost like 60 points less, 70 points less. He had Lamar Jackson just paired with, again, I don't know if I do this, but Lamar Jackson to Mark Ingram, I don't think I get there either. And that's just what I'm saying. It's just like, I'm not even sure I'd ever get there. By the way, you kind of need Lamar Jackson to throw touchdowns to Mark Ingram. He threw 2 to Mark Ingram. Can you guess now after this week how many receiving touchdowns Mark Ingram has?
2.
Those are the only 2 he has the whole season. So I mean, you gotta get lucky in some of this stuff. Right?
And there have been weeks.
Yeah, where it's been 11 weeks of 0 receiving touchdowns. So let me pair Lamar Jackson with Mark Ingram, because today I have a hunch he's not just going to throw 1 to him. He's going to throw 2 to him.
There have been weeks though where I've actually set on Cruncher where I'll put, don't play wide receiver with the running back, but I've actually had a couple weeks where I've excluded Lamar Jackson and Ingram from that for one reason. When you're going up against a bad run defense and a good pass defense, I can see Jackson and Ingram, depending on their prices, both getting there because of what they do on the ground. Could Mark Ingram rush for 2 touchdowns and go for 80 yards? Yeah. Could Lamar Jackson rush for 100 yards and run in a touchdown or 2, throw a couple? Yeah. But on this slate, it was unlikely that I was going to get to Jackson and Ingram. But like you said, even if there have been times this season where I've been willing to play Jackson and Ingram together, which I have, right, it wasn't because I expected Ingram to haul in 2 receiving touchdowns. It was because I thought they would just bludgeon the opposing team on the ground.
Yeah, correct. And it's one of those to where I'd almost argue they are completely inverse correlated. Like when one does well, the other one almost always does poorly. I think they've had 1 game. You could argue maybe 2. I'm not sure. I think it's just really 1 game where they both had decent games because Ingram rushed for 100 or whatever, and Lamar Jackson got in the end zone 2 times. But they almost, if you're talking pass catching and getting in the end zone, and when one scores, the other one scores, it's almost never like that. So weird pairing here again, but again, it just shows you don't need to be, it doesn't always need to make sense for it to work, and at least beforehand. Then how it plays out, if it just happens to work out like that, you have a very unique lineup that also has the upside of correlation. So, yeah, interesting move. But obviously it works. So again, congratulations to him.
Ball games in chat says it's pointless to review things last week, has nothing to do with the next week. No, it's not true at all. To get an idea of what people are winning with, whether it was just out of nowhere, whether it's something that we've seen players do consistently, good players do consistently, what their player pools look like, whether there's something we can take from it. I absolutely think there's value to breaking down week to week to see what other people are doing, what works and what hasn't worked. It doesn't mean you apply the exact same thing to the following week. That would be crazy. But to get an idea, for example, how many times each week is somebody winning with a quarterback stack, right? How many times is somebody winning without a stack? All of these things can be applied into your daily research.
Yeah, for sure. And it's in any industry. It's not just this, right? Like if I told him whatever he does for a living, don't look at what happened beforehand. It's not going to help you at all. Just go forward and try to predict. I mean, come on, man. Like in every industry, you got to look at what happened in the past, kind of review whether you take it with a grain of salt or just want to see what happened or just learn something from it. You could always take something from this, right? You could always take something, whether it's, spreading yourself out, knowing that you're going to need just one or two lineups up there to make it happen for you. Now you spread out and you play a little bit more quarterbacks than you're used to, whether it's you're so anti the quarterback running back pairing. We've seen now two lineups placed first and second with the same quarterback running back pairing. Not saying that you're going to run it next week, but maybe you're more open to leaving that open in your player pool or in your settings to make it happen. There's so many different things that work out, right? Like the Atlanta situation. Atlanta has been a bad defense forever. If you've watched them the last 2 weeks, they look like a top 3 defense the way they've played against Drew Brees and now Kyle Allen. Are you all of a sudden going to project them to be a little bit better going forward? Like all these things make sense. And yeah, you should be looking at stuff like this. Why not?
So take a look at Laz Gets Fit, luxury box. Not a good day for him in the luxury box, Manny, but let's go ahead and see what
he didn't win another 200K. Thank goodness, man.
Yeah,
he's human.
So okay, yes, ball games. Each week's slate is completely different. It's not about reviewing what players to play the next week. It's about what people are doing that is winning lineups. And sometimes the guys that win it, if you have a bad week and you go and you're looking at what people did to win and, they've paired this guy with this and it's crazy and, inverse correlation and the lineup's just hideous. There's a good chance that you might not have done anything wrong, but you could go back and look at things and say, oh, this is why they won. I definitely screwed up there. And I've done that plenty of times, man, where I look at something, I say, I shouldn't have done that. Like I made a mistake.
Yep.
And, these 3 guys who are great players didn't make that mistake and they had good weeks. You can only blame so much of it on bad luck. And I think this allows you to be honest with yourself about whether you're getting unlucky or you're just doing something wrong. So
yeah, no, and I totally agree. I listen, I love reviewing stuff. I love it. Like I live for it. I love, like, this is the aspect of the week that I think I enjoy the most, right? Because it helps me brainstorm with my strategy going into the next week. Obviously, I don't plan on doing exactly what other people did this week because some of the stuff I just still don't agree with, like playing Josh Allen and Singletary together, Lamar Jackson and Mark Ingram together. I probably still won't do that. But the more I see these 3%ers, 4% quarterbacks keep winning, the more I want to put emphasis on maybe the lower owned quarterbacks instead of the chalk Kyle Allens or the chalk Matt Ryans every single week. If that continues to fail over and over and over, like there's so many of this stuff that to me is so fascinating and you can learn from.
It's crazy too, is the 2 top quarterbacks in the first and second place winners in the Millie Maker, both are guys that are like the only 2 quarterbacks that you could run naked if you wanted to.
Yeah, for sure. And it always happens to where one of these 5%ers or lower, and outside of Lamar Jackson, everyone was extremely low owned, like extremely low owned. That was up there. Like Dak wasn't, astronomically owned. Like Josh Allen was 3-4%, depending on your tournament. The week before, Danny Dimes to what was it? Slayton was a pairing that was virtually unheard of before the week started. Like, you love seeing this, and maybe you do want to get in these large field tournaments. Maybe you do want to get a little more different and emphasize, uniqueness and diversity in your player pool. Maybe that is the way to go, and you'd never know it if you didn't go back to these weeks, maybe the last 5 weeks, and just continue seeing these trends if you didn't go back and take a look.
Two more things here. Robert Gall says, can people explain chalky Kyle Allen in the Millie Maker? Like, I honestly don't get it. What were people expecting from him? Yeah, I'd say the one thing would be just that DJ Moore and Olsen were cheap and Curtis Samuel were cheap. And the Falcons have been bad. So, there was just, I think for a lot of people, it was just a natural move to stack them with Kyle Allen. And one more thing from our friend Ball Games 32. He said, if you win the Millie, you get luck more than anything. Now, there's no question that luck is involved. And some people that we've seen win it this season, I don't think they had any. There are a couple where you're like, wow, I don't have any idea how that happened. But what about when you talk about a guy like Two Gun, who has won the Millie 3 different times? It's hard to say that's all luck.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to say from experience, it really isn't all luck. When you're in that zone where you just have a strong hold on the week every single week, it really feels like the tournament becomes easy almost. And I've experienced this firsthand, to where everyone hates the Millie. Everyone hates these large field tournaments, and rightfully so. I mean, as the field keeps getting better, it just becomes that much more difficult. But when you have a strong grasp on a strategy that is just far and away better than everyone else, you start being more comfortable. You start, like, you don't mind that the payout structures are so bad, because you feel you really do have an edge. And I don't know, if you ask me and tell me someone, this is primarily luck based, but someone's won it 3 times, I'll start to doubt everything I know about these luck box tournaments. 3 times is a lot. I know there's been a few that have won it twice as well. And there's guys that year over year are profitable in this tournament.
Right.
I wouldn't say it's all luck based. That's you can't just generalize and say it's just all luck.
So let's take a look at Laz Gets Fit.
Let's do it.
I just want to see real quick. I'm anxious to see. Okay, so in this one, no. We've got Lamar, McCaffrey, Jacobs, Stills, Gage, McLaurin, Olsen, Noah Fant. God, how was he way under the salary cap here?
Possibly could be. Which tournament are you looking at?
Go ahead into the luxury box.
Okay.
Scroll. He's 83rd place. So Jackson, McCaffrey, Jacobs, Stills, Gage, McLaurin. No, I guess he wasn't under the cap, because McLaurin was way more expensive than I would have thought. I don't think Laz ran any back. I don't think he ran his D back with anything here, man. He went Lamar Jackson in all 3 lineups.
Very uncharacteristic of him.
Very uncharacteristic. Went naked Lamar Jackson in 2 of them. So, I don't know. Nothing crazy from Laz.
No. Naked Lamar Jackson. He had DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey paired in 1. I'd probably debate that one. Kenyon Drake in one of them. Very different. And he ran double tight end in that 3rd one, to where he had OJ Howard and Ebron. Howard gave him a fat 0. Dude. So I don't know. That's rough. By the way, I had one OJ Howard the entire 50 of mine.
Ted Lemoyne in chat. I love what he said here. Skill is putting yourself in position to win it week after week. Luck is coming in first.
Correct. That's exactly what I say about it every single time. It's just give yourself a chance. Give yourself that 1% lineup. And if it goes your way, it goes your way, man. But what you can do is give yourself a chance at it. Obviously, there's no skill to winning first every time. That's impossible.
For sure. Now,
if you put yourself in good spots, you'll get there.
Now, when you and I talk about there being value in looking at other people's lineups, Chipotle Addict is a very good player, and he took this down. He came in 1st and 4th place, and 24th and 31st and 33rd. Right? He played 9 lineups. He cashed 5 of them. He won, and he came in 4th. He profited $225,000 on this contest. So of course you'd say, well, yeah, but he can max a contest where it's $300,000 or $3,000 to enter. Number one, most of the best players around are in this. But number two, he cashed 5 of 9, won it, and came in fourth. That's incredible. So let's see what he did. Josh Allen.
I think he is, in my opinion, I've said this plenty of times before. In my opinion, he is the best NFL DFS player.
He's really good. Yep, he's really good. Josh Allen, Christian McCaffrey, Joe Mixon, Devontae Parker, Deebo Samuel, John Brown, Eric Ebron, Darren Waller, double tight end.
Yep.
And Panthers defense. Wow.
Crazy, because the only player that I actually think was a suspect play there, by the way, I do so I've been reviewing lineups, reviewing pro players for a really long time now. I'm going like almost 3 years doing this. Apart from me thinking he is the very best at this sport, there's very few times where I've found mistakes in his lineups. And it's funny because I still haven't found this year, and I review this guy religiously every single week. I haven't found mistakes until this week, believe it or not. And that was that Ebron play right there. The Ebron play is the only mistake I see. And that's probably the entire year I've seen one mistake from him.
Why do you say it was a mistake?
Yeah, because so I know how he values players, and it's more going the contrarian route to where how often can they reach a certain point, and then what their ownership should be. And that ownership was way over the amount of times Ebron will win GPP scores or will get to GPP scores. And if you do it for every other player in his entire player pool, they all get there. So essentially he's playing a bunch of under-owned guys that all have the ability to give you GPP winning scores. Ebron this year, finally the first person I've found that did not reach that threshold. So I wouldn't say weird. I mean, finally the guy made one mistake in my opinion, but another exceptional player pool. DJ Chark, such a good play when you factor that. Like, I don't know, he's just really good at the sport. It's crazy.
He is. He mixed up his quarterbacks quite a bit, right? Nick Foles, Winston. At least it's good to see that he had a couple Winston lineups too.
Yeah.
Knowing that, all right, I'm not crazy. He had some Mike Evans. He had some Godwin. Not a ton, but he had them in those lineups. Of course, knowing that Marshawn Lattimore was out. But one thing that stands out here, Manny, and this is what you see in these like non-150 max. Take a look at this. So 6 of his lineups were just quarterback, wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was quarterback, wide receiver, and opponent. One was quarterback, running back, wide receiver, opponent. And then one was quarterback, running back, 2 wide receiver, and an opponent. Interestingly, his quarterback, wide receiver, opponent came in first, and then quarterback, wide receiver, second, third, fourth, and fifth, compared to his own lineups.
Right.
The one with the mega stack came in last. And I think there's something to be said here for in contests where you can't max 150, maybe single entry, 3 max, or ones like this, maybe not going with the full out stack. And we're seeing that 6 of 9 lineups were just QB wide receiver.
Yeah. So this is actually a trend between a lot of the top players in the industry, to where last year it was a lot of 4 and 5 mans were taking these things down. I don't know, just game stacked seemed much more relevant last year, to where games would absolutely blow up and quarterbacks would throw for 400 yards a lot more. There'd be multiple 100-yard receivers in one game. And it just made a lot of sense last year, to where you almost could run 4-man stacks at a minimum. You could run some 5-mans, but at a minimum 4 pretty much the entire year and be profitable, right? It was just such it was just way better than running anything else in tournaments, to the point where this year it really hasn't played out like that. Whether the game has changed, whether, flags are now more relevant in the game, to where you can get downfield without even getting yards. I remember yesterday, Jameis Winston had a drive where he got to, the 10-yard line and didn't even have 10 yards passing, and they started at their own 20. It was just a bunch of flags, to where this just doesn't. Those 400-yard games are so much harder to come by nowadays that it's really tough to see those. And most of the top pros now have shifted back down to a 3-man stack, and now even 2-man. And you're seeing Chipotle primarily run that, even in his 150s in in the Millie Maker or these big large field tournaments, he's down to almost 3-mans primarily, and you're seeing 2-mans now in high stakes. So yeah, not surprising at all. It's a lot of people doing this now.
So when do you think? You think he hand builds these ones, or do you think this is just stuff that he's crunching and then pulling them from Cruncher, but crunching with different settings than he would for the max enter?
Correct. It's just different settings. So he is an FC user. It's I think it's just different settings now. It's no more forcing game stacks anymore.
Right. I would think probably he probably's crunched with play at least one
pass catcher, and then maybe the ability to run it back. I don't even think, well, in this tournament, I don't think he ran it back on purpose at all.
But my question though is, if you're optimizing and you're crunching with, say, at least one, how are you ever going to get one that's quarterback, running back, 2 wide receivers, and opponent? How are you ever going to get that to show up in your crunch?
So
right?
So that would be just, so again, going by his strategy and how he picks players, my guess would be that this lineup was a Finley to Auden Tate stack, and then Boyd and Mixon happened to be in the same lineup because according to his strategy and the way he makes lineups, Boyd and Mixon were pretty decent plays yesterday. So
normally you're right.
It landed like that.
Normally, I think you would very seldom get like all these guys from the same one. But I think what it comes down to is even if I didn't crunch with stacks, I was getting probably a lot of Tate and Boyd because of, and obviously once you sort it, you get less, but getting a lot of them because of how cheap they were against Oakland. So I would, if I had to guess, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's probably rare that in a contest like this, he would end up with quarterback, wide receiver, running back, 2 wide receiver, and an opposition all from the same game.
Yeah, very rare. For those that are going to question the Moreau play, it was also part of his strategy, and he is correct. That is a person that actually does make his pool if he does it the same way. So, yeah.
Okay. Interesting. See, like breaking this stuff down is fascinating to me because very good player. Being able to take a look at how he does this is certainly interesting. You want to know what else is crazy? Check this out. So, by the way, when we talk about like leverage players and getting low-owned guys with high upside, that doesn't mean that you're fading all of the good plays. Like, he clearly thought Josh Jacobs was a good play. He clearly thought Miles Sanders was a good play, and Christian McCaffrey. He had 8 of 9 McCaffrey, 8 of 9 Sanders, 6 of 9 Jacobs. But check this out, Manny. Deebo Samuel, he had 5 of 9. Then he had like 3 of 9 Parker, 3 of 9 Westbrook, 2 of 9 Thomas, then Boyd, Cortland Sutton, Shark, and then just a bunch of very random receivers. Not random as in not good or completely low owned, but random as in only one here, random in specific lineups. That's interesting that he really nailed down on went heavily concentrated with 3 running backs and then spread his receivers out a ton.
Yeah, so
he also had 5 Ebron, by the way.
The what?
He had 5 Eric Ebron of 9.
Yeah, I think to me that was probably the only questionable spot here. What people should look at, and what I think everyone, if you're going to take a look at him, what the best part about his lineups is, and what people don't notice, he played Carolina perfectly, right? So it's one thing to actually run and I don't even call this a model. I don't know what you call this, but the strategy, I guess, or the math, and see that the biggest question marks, and I talked about this on my stream yesterday morning, where if you're just running straight cruncher, you upload projections, you tweak them however you want to, and you run all your settings, stacks, game stacks, whatever, you're going to get a lot of Kyle Allen because all these guys are so cheap. Olsen, DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, and then obviously if you wanted to pay up for McCaffrey, you were getting there. Again, if you kind of make lineups the way he does, or at least very similar to the way he does. Again, I'm not perfect with how he makes it. I just know more or less his play style. If you were to look at the sheet or whatever it is that he does, you would have seen Moore was a terrible play. Curtis Samuel was a terrible play, and Greg Olsen was a terrible play. Now, it's one thing to look at it and do it because I wouldn't have the stones to do that. That's the only difference between him. He does, and he didn't play any one of them. Also, you would have not gotten Kyle Allen. There isn't enough people to stack. And there you go. You were able to make a bunch of lineups without all the chalk guys. But if you just listen to the math, I think, and be disciplined, I think obviously he is. he was able to fade almost all of them and just go straight McCaffrey. That seemed like the right move on paper yesterday. It's one thing to see it on paper and then implement it with real money on the line, especially with the volume he has. So again, stuff like that are what makes him just a really, really good player. And people just kind of don't see that on the surface. They just see how much he wins and then complain, right? That he has a brother or whatever. I don't know.
You're not wrong. Let's do one more here, Manny.
Yep.
Take a look at the power sweep. Now this one's interesting because we already did a 150 max. We did a 9 max on the luxury box. How about a 3 max 100K to first and see what we get here? Because the 3 max is also a different strategy. I actually want to see not what the winner did, but I want to see what Chipotle Addict did again. Why don't we stay with what we've been looking at to see what we get? So he actually placed 13th in one of these lineups, or in one of these 2350. He obviously profited on the day, 2450 profit. As a matter of fact, of the 3 lineups he played, he cashed 2 of 3, and he had Allen, McCaffrey, Sanders, Parker, Samuel, John Brown, Ebron, Jacobs, Panthers. So very similar to one of the lineups that was towards the top in the other contest. In terms of exposure, did he have? So he had 2 of. All right, so 3 different quarterbacks. He had all 3 McCaffrey, 2 of 3 Jacobs, 2 of 3 Devontae Parker again, 2 of 3 Samuel, 2 of 3 Ebron. So he basically stuck with that same grouping. His heavily owned players seem to be the case throughout each contest.
Yeah, he has just a ton of McCaffrey, a ton of Jacobs. Miles Sanders was in 2 of 3 as well too. So yeah, he stuck with kind of what he felt good about, and yeah, it ended up working. That Josh Allen pairing with Brown and then running it back with Devontae Parker ended up being the nuts yesterday, and you kind of needed that pairing specifically, or that trio specifically, to win some decent money yesterday. He was right on it. He saw a really under-owned game stack, or mini game stack, if you want to call it, in Josh Allen being 3%, Devontae Parker being 2.5%, and then John Brown being 4.5%. That's really, really under-owned for a trio that, according to him, had really high upside. People just weren't on, and anytime he sees that, it's perfect. I thought the only other game that had value like that, or had upside like that, a really low ownership, was that Detroit-Dallas game, and having, Kenny Golladay, Marvin Jones with one of Gallup, and Amari Cooper got shadowed yesterday, had a bad game, but Dak I thought was also really, really, really good.
Somebody in chat said, I'm starting to lose faith in game stacks, except pairing QB and 1 wide receiver. I'm just going to try to TD Hunt. I just wanted to pull up to give you an idea of whether or not it works. It won't always work, of course, but the guy that came in 3rd place in the Millie Maker had Allen and John Brown and ran it back actually with 2 Miami Dolphins players, and this guy won 40,000. So it's still, like, the stacks are still very much in play. But what we're saying is, especially when it comes to 3 max or single entry, or even like 20 max, you don't need, 20 max you probably do, because there's 20 max, the field is so big. But
right.
Yeah, there are certainly spots where it's still going to work. Here's another one. 4th place in the Millie Maker, just to give you an idea, because we haven't looked at a ton of game stacks. 4th place in the Millie Maker, Sam Darnold, Jamison Crowder, and Ryan Griffin with Jets defense, Manny. He didn't even run it back with anybody, but that is 3 Jets plus their defense, and he won a cool 25K.
Yeah, the Jets were a part of that equation too, really low owned, where you had some upside in a few of those guys in that receiving core. If you played Le'Veon Bell, I thought he was okay too. There were some teams that really stuck out yesterday. It's just, how do you go from seeing what the correct plays are in a given week, right? What the chalk will be, what everyone else is on. You see something like the Jets or like Josh Allen to John Brown and think, you know what, I can win this way. It takes a really strong, confident individual to make these plays, right? Because you see everyone with Lamar Jackson and whoever, with Jameis Winston to Mike Evans, and you're here with Josh Allen to John Brown. It feels wrong in the beginning of the week, right? It feels like, man, I'm going to lose out to these guys, where it's not like the Buffalo Bills aren't going to score anything, especially against Miami, right? Like equally a good spot than anyone else on the slate. You just have to trust the numbers And there's some guys that do. I thought the Jets were pretty okay yesterday too.
Yeah, and also, keep in mind as well that like on a slate like this, you're not going to see insanely crazy game stacks at the top because the two quarterbacks that were in all of these lineups are Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson.
Right. So it's I think Dak, if you look at bigger tournaments, larger field tournaments, I think Dak was there if you paired with.
Yeah, he was in quite. Yeah, you're right.
I saw a bunch of Dak to Gallup and Cobb instead of Amari Cooper, and they ran it back with I don't know, pick like Marvin Jones or something, whoever. But there were some really good stacks there that included Dak as well too. But you needed Josh Allen, Lamar, or Dak. I don't think any other quarterback out there.
Right, I'm with you. Seeing if Chipotle Addict had anything come in towards the top. It'd be interesting. Yeah, so he has one of two. So he came in, what is this, 67th? Let's just see this before we head out, and I want to get your take on it, Manny.
What tournament is this?
Millie Maker came in 67th. So we've reviewed him in the Power Sweep, in the Luxury Box. How about in this one? Josh Allen, Alvin Kamara, Fournette, Devontae Parker, Deebo Samuel, John Brown, Dallas Goedert, Josh Jacobs, and the Saints. What about his exposures? So he had
it's a lot of Devontae Parker, man.
47% Jeff Driscoll.
Interesting.
Look at these QB ownerships, man. Driscoll, Foles, Finley, and Dak are his 4 highest. No Matt Ryan, no Drew Brees, no Kyle Allen. That's something right there. No Lamar Jackson. How about that?
Yeah, it's exactly what I'm talking about. There were 2 games specifically, I think, that were extremely underowned. There you go. It was that same Dallas Lions game. That explains the Driscoll Dak game, and then Josh Allen, I think, was the other spot. They were just so low owned. You look at their ownership in that tournament, and it's just like, how on earth was Dak sub 10? Driscoll was obviously at 3% or whatever he was. So was Josh Allen, and it's like people don't like the names of these guys, right? But the game has to play out. There has to be points scored. There has to be receivers catching balls. And there is going to be guys that score 100 or that have 100 receiving yards and get bonuses. And it happened in both of those games, and he was able to reap the rewards, right? It was where he is moving up the leaderboards when this happens, and virtually no one else is, as they're all solo owned, and that's kind of what you need in the Millionaire.
All right, man. Anything else you want to touch on before we get out of it? Oh, you know what? Let's take a look quickly at the perfect lineup. And
Sure.
While we're at it, I'll let you know that NFL Strategy is the sign-up code to get 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus membership. Projections, ownership, top stack tool, all of our premium articles, the lineup builder, and of course the Fantasy Cruncher add-on. Check it out. Go to awesemo.com/join. And if you click begin subscription, we'll ask you what type of player you are. When you answer, we'll recommend the package for you that's not too much, not too little. Gives you everything you need for what you're willing to spend. Or get a $3.95 per week express package. And if you're not ready, you want to see what we've got, scroll all the way to the bottom of the page at awesemo.com/join and take a look at the video tutorials on all of our favorite and most popular tools before you do anything. So if you're ready, when you want to sign up, when you want to join us, use the sign-up code NFL Strategy. One word, get 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus, and be sure to come say what's up in the premium Slack chat. We'll show you around. All right, Manny. Oh, and by the way, if you enjoy the show, hit us with a thumbs up, like the video. It helps us out a lot, and we're greatly appreciative. Subscribe, hit that notification bell as well. Jimmy Garoppolo, Christian McCaffrey, Gus Edwards, John Brown, DJ Shark, Calvin Ridley, Ryan Griffin, Randall Cobb, and the Falcons. What's crazy is that this is the optimal lineup, the perfect lineup, but Josh Allen was in like almost all of the top lineups.
Yeah, it was because you don't really have the pairing to put with Jimmy Garoppolo. I guess Deebo Samuel could be your guy, but didn't get to what any other receiver got to with their pairing, right? If you saw John Brown, not the same. If you saw Michael Gallup, not the same. So I don't know. It was. Yeah, Garoppolo had that game, and I guess for that price, it fit in the optimal lineup. But if you were making viable lineups, one that we could make beforehand, I don't know. This one just doesn't quite fit the bill. Gus Edwards, nobody had Gus Edwards.
Yeah, Gus Edwards, man. Gus Edwards, you got to be kidding me, dude. I mean, it's not that anyone played him, but that's what the perfect lineup looked like. And then, of course, the perfect lineup for Yahoo. What do we got here? How can I change? Oh, here we go. Okay, so their main slate, Allen, McCaffrey, Ingram, John Brown, Calvin Ridley, Stefan Diggs, Ryan Griffin, DJ Shark, and Falcons. Diggs had the huge second half.
Yeah, Diggs had a humongous second half. Yep, that was nice.
All right, man. Where can they find you at? Tell everyone where to find you. And, of course, you and I will be back here next Monday. You'll be with Chris Randone on Friday, and I'll be with Sal Vetri tomorrow taking our first look at Week 12. Close us out, baby.
Yeah, Twitter at @mlaura, like my name. You can find all my work at Fantasy Cruncher. You guys use the tools already anyway. And then you can find my stream, which usually airs right after this. No stream today, at twitch.tv/mlaura.
That'll do it. Follow me. Do it. At Laufey_D, LOUGHY_D. I'll see you there. Until next time, thanks for hanging out. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Sal Vetri, myself, Dave Lochran, on the NFL Strategy Show, presented by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports.